it's Tina and I am back, and I am here with a video that I have promised you guys for a while now. So it's long overdue, and it's a mega swatch fest of all my Cozzette Infinite Eyeshadows. It's taken me a while to actually sit down and do the talk through part of the video, but the swatches have been sitting and waiting for months now, and so I don't want to delay them any further. So if you're interested in seeing the Cozzette Infinite Eyeshadows in all their glory, then let's just get right into that, and then we can chat about the formulation, the pricing, all that good stuff after you see the swatches. So let's just jump right into it. For the swatches, I'm going to be applying them using my Sigma Eye Shading E55 eyeshadow brush, and I'm applying them over a very light layer of Urban Decay Eyeshadow Potion. This is the original formula. I'm going to be starting off with the white shades in the collection. The first up is Zen, which is a matte white shade. This is a simple, subtle matte white shade. It's not overly pigmented. It can be used as a transition shade or a blending shade for those with very pale skin tones, or you can use it as a highlight shade on darker or tan skin tones as well. Next up we have Mica, which is a crystal shade, and this one is meant to be a translucent shade with tons of shine to it, and that is exactly what it is. It's almost like a topper shade. It is a sheer white shimmery shade with silver sheen to it. It's actually a different shade than I am used to. It's one that you would use again as an accent shade rather than a full-on eyeshadow, and it is very, very shiny, and you can use it over different types of eyeshadow shades because it is sheer. Next up we have the shade Truth, which is a velvet eyeshadow. This one is a beautiful shimmery white shade with a very, very light touch of gold to it, but it's mostly an all white shade. It would work great on the inner corner. It is beautiful and shimmery and metallic. It's a really smooth shade, and it applies beautifully and has great pigmentation. Next up is the shade Illume, which is another velvet eyeshadow, but this one has more of a duochrome effect, so it reflects a little bit of a pinky hue, almost like a violet hue to it. As you can see, again, very beautiful, very shiny. It's another white shade, but it has that reflective duochrome quality to it. Moving on to the nude shades, we'll start out with the lighter tones. This first shade is Honor, and this one is a matte tone. It's a beautiful light peach shade, again, for use on lighter skin tones for transition, or you can use it on deeper skin tones for a highlight. It's a beautiful, just very simple light ivory shade with a peach undertone. Next up we have Pagan, which is a matte peachy tone. Another beautiful transition shade for lighter skin or for a highlight color. Next up we have the shade Serene. This one is a matte medium peach tone now. This one is definitely a great warm shade. Again, nice for blending in the crease or as a transition shade for lighter skin tone or even medium skin tone. Moving on to more of the medium tones, this one is Allure, which is a velvet eyeshadow. And this one has a bit of golden peach undertone to it. It's a little bit of a duochrome shade. This one is a beautiful shimmery shade. It will be great as a highlight shade or as a transition shade, or even to apply all over the lids. Then we have Halite. This one is another one of the crystal eyeshadows. So again, it's a sheer shade with a ton of shimmer and shine to it, so you can use it as a topper shade. This one has more of a neutral undertone, so this one would be better for darker skin tones. Instead of using that shimmery white, now you have more of a nudie tan shade. Next up is Quest, which is another crystal eyeshadow. This one is a little bit smoother, and it's still a very sheer shiny shade, but it's a little bit more of a satin metallic rather than a really sheer topper shade. Really beautiful, really shiny, really shimmery, and it's more of a tan shade, like a tan nude. Really great for inner tear duct highlights. This one would work great on darker skin tones.
And then here we have Relax. This one is a velvet eyeshadow. This one is more of a subtle peachy nude shade. It's a beautiful all over color. It just gives a very subtle color to the lids, and it has a beautiful peachy undertone. So here again are those white shades and the light neutral shades. Really beautiful. I really like the crystal shades. They're a little bit different than anything else we've seen on the market. They're more of topper shades. They're really beautiful, and these matte shades also are very beautiful as well. Moving on to more of the mid-tone neutral hues, we have the shade Bliss, which is a crystal eyeshadow. So it's a really shimmery, more sheer shade. This one is a beautiful yellow bronze shade. It's so shimmery, so beautiful. Oh, this is probably one of my favorites from the lineup. Next we have Citrine, which is another crystal eyeshadow. This one is another beautiful shimmery shade, but it's a little bit more on the yellow bronze side, like a yellow gold bronze versus the Bliss shade, which is more of a tan bronze. Really beautiful and shimmery again, as you can see. Here we have Amber, which is a velvet eyeshadow. This one is a beautiful amber bronze, so it has a lot of warmth to it. It's a beautiful golden shimmer shade. Again, very smooth, very shimmery, very metallic. It's a beautiful, beautiful tone. Here we have the tone Shiva, which is another crystal eyeshadow. This one is more of a warm tone brown shade, and it's a little bit more of a shimmer shade with very fine micro shimmer in it. It's like yellow gold micro shimmer. It's really beautiful and really smooth as well. This shade is Balance, which is a velvet shade. This one is a very beautiful, like coppery bronze shade. Has a lot of orangey undertones. It's really beautiful. Again, very shimmery, very smooth shade to apply. Moving on to more of the warm matte shades. This one is Wonder, which is a peachy medium toned orange shade with a ton of warm undertone. It's not really that pigmented, it's a little bit more sheer, so you could use this as a transition shade in the crease. Here we have the shade Empower. This one is a deeper warm tone brown shade. It's like a deep caramelly brown. It has yellow undertones and orangey undertones to it. Another great blending shade in the crease, or you can use it to deepen up a look. Here we have more of the neutral gray tone shades. This one is Transition, which is just a pale gray tone nude. It's a very sheer shade. It barely shows up on my skin tone. It's not really intense in pigmentation at all. It's definitely for more gray toned or cool tone looks. But there's really no pigmentation, so I would skip on this shade. Then we have Soul. This one is also a neutral toned brown shade, but this one has a little bit more pigmentation. It's a little bit more loose, but it's a smoother shade and it does pick up on my skin. But this one will make a great transition shade for me because it just adds a little bit of depth to my skin tone without being too deep. Then here we have the shade Grace. This one is another transition medium tone. This one has a little bit more gray to it, it's a little bit more neutral, but again, it would make a great transition shade for my skin tone. These three shades are very subtle in pigmentation, so these would be ones that you would use for blending in the crease and for just adding a little bit of depth without being too overwhelming. Here we have Duran. This one is more of an olivey tone nude. It has a little hint of green to it, so it's great for neutral looks, and it can look a little bit gray as well. Another great transition shade. And then we have the shade Union, which is a deeper neutral tone brown shade. This shade has a little bit of warmth to it, so it would be great on medium tone skin tones with warm undertones. So here again you have those medium tone neutral shades. The crystal shades are so gorgeous. I definitely recommend those first two shades if you're looking for shimmery neutrals, and then those metallic shades next to them are beautiful as well. The neutral matte shades that we have here are very subtle shades. They are easy to blend out. They're very light in pigmentation, so they will be great for creating depth and dimension in the eye without being too overwhelming or just too intense on the eyes. So if you're looking for subtle transition shades, here you have a great selection of them. Moving on to the deeper neutral shades, we have the shade Burnish, which is a matte deep chocolatey shade. This one will work great for deepening up the crease and bringing depth to a look. Next up, we have the shade Trust, which is more of a deep red and brown. This one takes some building up. It's not the greatest pigmentation and it feels a little bit drier in texture. It's not creamy or smooth. Then we have the shade Accent, which is another deep berry shade, but this one has a lot of purpley undertone. It again is a sheer shade that you do have to build up, and it is a little loose, a little powdery, but it does feel a lot smoother on the skin than Trust. Next up is Dignity, which is one of the velvet textures. This one is a deep burnt chocolatey brown, and it has a hint of like a purpley undertone to it. It's more like a burnt chocolatey plum shade with that hint of purple. It will make a great smoky eye. Now we're going to move on to the more silver hues. We have the shade Platinum, which is a crystal eyeshadow. This one is of course a shimmery sheer shade because it is that crystal finish. It's really beautiful, really shimmery, but you do have to kind of press to really smooth it out on the skin, but it gives a beautiful platinum shine to the skin, and it has a hint of like a greeny or olive undertone to it, but it's one of those chunky sheer finishes. This next shade is Herkimer, which is also a crystal eyeshadow. This one though is more of a shimmery frosty shade. It's not too sheer like the other crystal shades, but it is a shiny silver pewter shade with a hint of warmth to it, like a warm undertone. It's really shimmery, really beautiful, and this one is really pigmented as well. Then we have the shade Hematite, which is also a crystal eyeshadow or one of the more velvet type eyeshadows. This one is also very shimmery, very beautiful. It's a deep gunmetal silver shade or like a blackened silver shade with a hint of warmth to it as well. You can even see a little bit of a violet shift to it. Really gorgeous. Now here we have the shade Jet, which is a matte black, and it's a beautiful, rich black shade. It's one of the richest black shades I've ever seen, and it isn't warm, it doesn't have a cool undertone, it's just pure black, and you have to be careful with this shade that you don't overdo it, but it's great for deepening up looks or just adding a smoky hint to a look. Really richly black shade. So here again we have the deep neutral shades in the lineup plus the silvery hues and the matte black shade. These shades are actually pretty nice when you apply them to the eyelids. They build up pretty nicely, they don't skip, but they aren't the smoothest, like creamiest shades, but they do have great pigmentation. It's just a matter of building them up in the crease. And then the crystal shades are really beautiful. As you can see, they're very shiny, very beautiful. And then the matte black is a really intense, rich matte black. If you're looking for an intense matte black, this is one for you to check out. Moving on to the more colorful shades, starting out with the yellows. So we have the shade Sun Up, which is a matte, bright sunshine yellow. This one is a little bit more sheer in pigmentation, so you do have to build it up. And it's not the most intense at all, but if you're looking for a sheer yellow shade, here's one for you. I just find that there are better yellow shades on the market. Then we have the shade Rise, which is a velvet eyeshadow. This one is definitely a more intense shade. It's a light, bright yellow shade. It's almost like a sunshine yellow shade. It definitely has better pigmentation. It's more of a shimmery, frosty shade. And it's a beautiful, bright color. If you're looking for a bright yellow, here you have one. Then we have the shade Pyrite. This one is a crystal eyeshadow, so it's more sheer in pigmentation. It's more of an olivey yellow shade, meaning it has a little bit of a green undertone to it. It's a very sheer, very light color. I would almost skip this one unless it's a specific shade you were looking into, because it's a very sheer shade. You barely get any pigmentation off of it, and I don't think it's that interesting of a color. Then we have Niobium, which is also a velvet eyeshadow. This one is more of a golden, almost like an orangey bronze shade. It almost reminds me of yellow gold, like real true 24 karat gold. It has that bright orangey gold look to it. Really pigmented and really beautiful. Moving on to the green shades, we have the shade Abundant. This one is a matte grass green. It has a ton of yellow and warm undertone to it. It's a really beautiful green shade, and it's a matte finish. Then we have Peridot, which is a crystal eyeshadow. This one is one of the sheer shades again. It's a crystal. It's a bright grassy green base with yellow gold shimmer to it. This one is really beautiful, and it really picks up nicely. It's a great accent shade for like a green look. I really like that one. Next up we have Blade. This one is a medium green, and it's more of a neon green. As you can see, it's really bright, really bold, really intense, and the pigmentation is beautiful for a matte shade. Like, look at that green. That is a really great green shade. Moving on to more of the blue-green hues or the teal shades. This one is Aquamarine, which is a velvet eyeshadow. So it's more of a frosty eyeshadow. It's a beautiful seafoam green shade or a seafoam teal shade because it has a lot of blue to it and a lot of green as well. It's a really beautiful shade, matches its name exactly. Really, really beautiful. Then we have Gardot, which is a matte bright teal shade. Another beautiful shade, a little bit more sheer in pigmentation. You do have to build it up to get full opacity, but it's a really smooth matte shade and a really bright, intense color. Then here we have Mystic. This one is a deeper teal shade. It's really beautiful, really intense. This one is a gorgeous deep teal, and the pigmentation is beautiful. There's no skipping. It's really intense. It's gorgeous. Then we have the shade Infinite. This one is a deep forest green shade, and it's a velvet finish. It has a beautiful sheen to it. It's really gorgeous again, and this one actually has nice pigmentation as well. And here again we have those golden hues, more of the green shades, and some of the green blue teal shades. Most of these shades are really beautiful. The only one that I would skip is this third shade that really wasn't very impressive at all. And the first bright yellow shade here, Sun Up, was not a very impressive one at all. But all the other shades are really beautiful. They have some bright greens and a bright teal. Oh my god, these colors are really gorgeous if you're looking for colorful shades. Moving on to more of the blue and purpley shades. First up we have the shade Gratitude, which is a bold sky blue shade. It has to me, this is more of a satin finish than a full-on matte. And it applies pretty nicely, but it is not the best blue shadow out there. It doesn't have the best pigmentation. Next we have the shade Oceanic, which is a velvet eyeshadow. This is a beautiful like ocean blue shade. The name fits it nicely because it's so shimmery and beautiful. It's reflective like water. It's a beautiful frosty blue shade. Then we have Gaia. This one is a crystal eyeshadow, and it's more of a shimmery teal base with beautiful yellow gold and silver shimmer to it. It's really shimmery and beautiful. As you can see, it's really reflective. This one is a gorgeous shade. Then we have Dioptase, deep teal shade with microfine gold shimmer to it. I don't particularly love this shade because there's a lot of fallout because of that microfine shimmer. And then the matte shade at the base is not really the most pigmented. As you can see, the glitter kind of dusts away. So not my favorite shade from the collection. I really don't like this finish. Then we have Lapis. This one is a shimmery velvet navy shade. It is a little bit more loose, but it's a beautiful shimmery blue shade. It's almost like blue velvet, how beautiful it is. Next, we're moving on to the violet hues. We have the shade Shift, which is a velvet shade. This one is a light lavender with a golden shift. It's a very unique shade. It has great pigmentation. I've never really seen any shades like this. It's a very pale violet or like a lavender purple with that gold. It's really beautiful. And here we have Iolite, which is a crystal eyeshadow. This one is a dusty purple base with silver and gold shimmer to it again. This one is a little bit more sheer, but it's a beautiful crystal eyeshadow with that shiny finish to it. It's really metallic and beautiful. Then we have the shade Prince, which is actually in memory of the singer Prince. And it's a beautiful purple shade because, of course, Prince was all about his purples. It's a shimmery, beautiful violet. It has a very beautiful shiny sheen to it. Really beautiful, and it really does sing to the Prince memory. Moving on to the matte purples, we have the shade Rapture, which is a pinky purple shade. Has a bit more of a sheer color payoff. Not really the best for pigmentation. Next we have Violaceous. This one is a deeper fuchsia purple and it has better pigmentation, but it's still a little bit sheer. You would have to build this up for better color payoff. And then moving into the purple shades that I think are some of the best in the line. This is the shade Vision. It's a matte deep purple shade. It's actually very reminiscent of Makeup Forever's number 92. So if you missed out on that shade, this is a great one to pick up. It's a really beautiful deep purple and it swatches a little bit more sheer, but it builds up nicely on the eyes. Then we have the shade Aware, which is a bold blue base purple. This one is also a very beautiful one. It has more of a blue undertone, but it's such a beautiful purple. It's really intense. Again, you need to build it up a little bit, but it does apply beautifully to the eyes. So here we have the blue tones and the violet purple shades. Some really beautiful colors here. Some of them are outstanding. I especially love the purple shades, like these more lavender tones and then the two deep purples. Absolutely amazing. And then these blue shades are really gorgeous as well. This one is not too impressive because it's a little bit more sheer and that fallout from the gold glitter is not my favorite. And then this sky blue, there are other sky blues on the market that I think are more impressive. But overall, these shades are really gorgeous if you're looking for some purples and some blues. Now we're going to finish up with more of the red tones and berry tone shades. And we're starting off with the shade Synthesize, which is a matte raspberry shade. This is a beautiful matte raspberry pink. And it does layer up pretty nicely, but you do have to build it up to get full pigmentation. Then we have the shade Amaze, which is a velvet finish. This one is also a beautiful, bright, like fuchsia raspberry shade, and it has a purpley blue shift to it, like a duochrome undertone. Look how beautiful that is. It's really beautiful and shimmery and shiny. It's a really gorgeous fuchsia pink shade. Then we have the shade Jude, which is a matte muted tomato red shade. It's really bold, it's really intense, but it's not overly pigmented, so you can use it as a blush if you choose to as well. Then we have the shade Infrared. This is a neon, bright, bold cherry red shade. It's really intense, really beautiful. It has more of a true red undertone, or more of a blue-red undertone, I would say. So it's very bright, very bold. Again, you can use this one as a blush or use it on your eyes, but it's more of a true matte red. Then we have Passion. This one is a velvet finish. This one is a bright, shimmery, almost like a fluorescent red shade. It's so gorgeous. If you're into red tones, this is one that I would definitely recommend. It's so gorgeous. It actually reminds me of a red tone from Makeup Forever. Really beautiful. Then we have Carnelian. This one is a crystal eyeshadow. Again, these crystal eyeshadows are more sheer in pigmentation, and they're very shimmery, very glittery, and are more of a topper or accent shade. This one is so gorgeous as well. It's a beautiful shimmery red with that gorgeous sheen to it and shine. It's a really gorgeous color. Here we have Crimson. This one is a matte, bold, beautiful red. This one is definitely a more true red. It has less of that blue undertone. It's like a blood red shade. Really gorgeous matte red with great pigmentation. Then we have the shade Rumor. This one is a bold, bright, blood orange shade. It's an intense bright orange. It has decent pigmentation and it has a matte finish. Really gorgeous orangey red shade. Next up we have Twin Flame. This one is another orangey shade, but it's more of a corally orange. It needs a little bit more TLC to build it up, but it does build up to a nice bold color. Really beautiful orangey coral shade. And then we're gonna finish up with the shade Evolve, which is a rosette cranberry shade, like an orangey deep wine cranberry, which is a velvet finish, and it has beautiful sheen to it and really great color payoff as well. So here you have a look at all the red shades and orangey tones in the collection, and there are a ton of red shades to pick from. There's some true red, some blue red, some orangey red, some bold orange, there's a crystal, and you can definitely use these as blushes as well, which is probably what they were meant to be used as. These shades are really beautiful, really intense, and I really love this. If you are looking for red tones, look no further. You will find all the red shades you need to in this collection.
Alright guys, so now that you have seen the swatches, you've seen some of the duds, but some of the glorious shades that are available, we can just go ahead and do a quick overview of the brand, the pricing, the packaging, the ingredients, sizing, all of that stuff, and you will get my final thoughts on these eyeshadows. Now, the whole Cozzette brand was founded by Rocky Cozzette, and it's funny because when I met him years and years ago at the makeup show. I actually went to his booth to pick up some of his brushes because that's how he started his makeup line, with brushes, which are beautiful. They have beautiful purple handles. They're delightful. They're vegan. They're cruelty-free. They're just the ultimate in luxury synthetic brushes. So I did go to his booth and he asked me to model for one of his seminars. So that's how I met him. And his name is Cozzette, but he named his brand Cozzette because it was just easier for people to pronounce. So he's been around since the 80s in the pro makeup industry. He's made a career for himself. He is known for his airbrushing techniques, and now he has his own website where he sells his own products. So he has face products as well as eyeshadows, and of course his signature makeup brushes. So of course these eyeshadows are geared towards pro makeup artists, and they have a pro makeup artist touch to them. So the pigmentation is there, the undertones are there, and when he speaks about makeup, he's so passionate. He speaks about various undertones and various skin tones. So when he designs his makeup, he's thinking about the fairest of skin tones to the deepest of dark. So he's covering the whole range with his makeup line, and you will see that in his neutral collection, in his blending shades, like transition shades, he has different undertones from the lightest of light to the darkest of dark. There are different undertones and different depths, and he changes the tones based on the depth of skin, because of course a grayer undertone is going to work better on a lighter skin tone than on a deeper skin tone that needs it to be a little bit warmer. So you'll see that throughout his line that it's a pro makeup artist line. Now, the first thing I'm going to talk about, as usual, is the pricing, because what is the thing that we're most concerned about? Price point. So these eyeshadows retail for $12, and they're single pan eyeshadows. They don't come in a compact, they don't come in a palette. They are single pro pan form eyeshadows, and each eyeshadow is 3 grams or 0.1 ounces, which is pretty sizable. You're getting a ton of product in these eyeshadow pans. You pay a lot for a lot of product, but I would rather pay less for less product, because I don't see myself going through that much eyeshadow. But these are geared towards pro makeup artists, so of course they're going to use a lot more product than the regular average consumer. So with all that being said, the price point is a little bit steep, but you're getting a ton of products, so there's a trade-off for you there. Personally, I think the price point is a little bit hard to swallow, especially with the current beauty climate the way it is, where there's so many brands now available with single eyeshadows, and you can get these different single eyeshadow pans even from MAC for $6. So you have that competition on the market where this price point is just going to be a little bit steeper. But he also has sales a lot of the times for 30% off, so definitely try to buy these on a sale, or try to get them at the makeup show or at IMATS, because he does travel around to these different conventions with his products. So you can definitely check them out there to try to get them at a better price point, which the majority of these eyeshadows I have bought on sale, or I've gotten them at the makeup show. Now, as far as where you can purchase these eyeshadows, definitely you can purchase through the Cozzette makeup website. I will leave the link below. You can also shop ALCONE stores and ALCONE.com. ALCONE is a pro makeup artist website similar to NIGEL Beauty Emporium in California. That's also a website you can check out to pick these eyeshadows up. You can also find him most of the times, like I mentioned, at IMATS, at the makeup show. He will either be in a standalone booth or next to one of the ALCONE booths or the NIGEL Emporium booths in any of these shows. So you can check him out to see if he's going to show up at one of these shows near you. But that way you can get to see the eyeshadows in person, test them out, and also get them at that show price. Now let's go ahead and jump into the packaging of these eyeshadows, which is really simple, really basic. There is no fluff for these. There's no luxury. They're simple magnetized metal square pans with eyeshadows in them. They fit into any magnetized palette on the market because, like I said, the pans themselves are magnetized, so you don't have to add a magnet on the back for them to hold in a magnetized palette. The eyeshadows themselves, like I said, square pans, they are pressed with the Cozzette name that fades, but it's a nice little touch, you know. On the back, there's a simple label, and it doesn't look very professional. It's just a simple printed label that says Cozzette. It tells you the finish of the eyeshadow. So in this case, we have a matte eyeshadow. This is the shade Aware, so the shade name is on the back. It says cruelty-free, vegan, no animal testing, net weight 3 grams, made in PRC, which is the People's Republic of China. Yes, they can be cruelty-free and no animal testing even though they're made in PRC or China, because products that are just manufactured in China and shipped out are not subjected to the regulated animal testing that is required for cosmetics that are sold in China. So being sold in China and being made in China are two different things when it comes to animal testing. Then it says distributed by Cozzette, Brooklyn, New York. Hey, Brooklyn! And the website. The open jar symbol is also on here. It says 36 months, which is unheard of almost. Most eyeshadows you'll see 6 months, 12 months, maybe even 24 months. This is 36 months, which is fantastic. Really simple packaging. They come in a little plastic sleeve. There is nothing extra to it. You don't have the ingredients. The ingredients are listed on the website. In fact, when I first ordered mine, the first go around, there were no ingredients listed and I had to reach out via email to get the ingredients list. But now they're available on the website if you want to check out what the ingredients are in case you have sensitivity or you want to stay away from certain ingredients. Now let's go ahead and talk about the product and the performance. As you saw in the swatches, we have different finishes and textures. There are mattes, velvets, and crystal textures. Now the matte shadows are pretty self-explanatory. They're matte, no shine, flat finishes. Now with the matte shades, some of them are really smooth. Like the neutral shades are really smooth. They're really creamy. They feel buttery. They blend out really nicely on the skin. They're not patchy. They don't feel dry at all. But with some of the colorful shades, like the purples and the reds, some of the oranges, they feel a little bit gritty to the touch. So you can feel the pigment granules in them, like you feel texture, but they still apply really well and blend out nicely on the eyes. But they're not gonna be as silky and as creamy as some of the other neutral shades because of the pigments that are used for them to give them that high color payoff. It's not gonna be as smooth as the others. So just be mindful of that. If you feel the texture, if you get the shadows and you feel them, you're like, oh my God, don't worry, they do apply nicely and they do blend out nicely without being patchy. It's just that, the texture of them may be a little bit off. The crystal eyeshadows are what I would consider your metallic eyeshadows with tons of shimmer to them. They are very metallic, very shiny. So if you're looking for like a bold, metallized, really shiny look, then the crystal eyeshadows would be the ones that you would go with. But with the crystal eyeshadows, they're a little bit more tricky because they can be flaky. So you have to use a stickier base or use them with a damp brush or use them with a really stiff brush that you can press onto your lids or just apply them with your fingers. Those are going to be your best options because these can be a little bit fallout happy. They can get a little flaky, so just be mindful of that. As for the velvet texture, this is more of your traditional frost shades. So they're more finely milled. They're not as flaky as the crystal shades. They apply like a traditional frost shade. You do not need to apply these damp to get the beautiful coverage that you need from them. But if you do apply them with a damp brush or over a stickier primer, they're gonna give you more opacity. But these are beautiful frosty shades and I absolutely love them. I think they're divine. I think the texture is really nice and smooth. So I absolutely do love the texture of the velvets as well. And the velvets won't necessarily give you as high a shine as the crystals, but they're great for those people who aren't looking for the highly metallized look. They're just looking for a nice shimmer shade on the lid, which is my preference actually. Sometimes I want to go metallic, but for the most part, I prefer just a subtle sheen on the lid. So I do really like the velvets. And I think that the three textures that were chosen were really well done because he has a full range of mattes, from bright shades, bold, colorful shades, deep, dark shades, really beautiful transition neutral shades. They're just really great matte shades and you don't see that a lot in a lot of brands. Like they don't have a full range of mattes, and for this brand to have such a great variety of matte shades, kudos to them. And they have bold, colorful shades like the purple and the reds and the oranges and the teals and the blues. Can you even stand it? I think the mattes are standout mattes. Some of them are a little trickier, but for the most part, the mattes are spectacular and there's so many to choose from. For the crystal shades, I also think that they're gonna fit a certain taste. If you're into shimmery, crystallized, metallized, beautiful, shimmery lids, there are beautiful shades here for you to choose from. And then you have the velvet shades, which are just your traditional run-of-the-mill frost shades that work beautifully. And again, they're a range of colors for you to choose from neutral to colorful shades. And I think that, oh my God, the collection is just beautiful with the shade selection. And I also love his names because Cozzette is a very spiritual person. He tends to be very, I don't know, like you would call him very zen, and he believes a lot in the universe and like the energy that you put out there. So it's reflected in the names of the eyeshadows, and you can read all about the shade names under each shade. So I really think these shadows are great. For the most part, there's some shades that work a lot better than others. There's some that are does that I showed you. But overall, the majority of the shades are fantastic. And if you're looking for a range that's going to offer you beautiful neutral shades with various undertones to suit your specific skin tone. So if you're looking for a neutral range for your porcelain skin or for your deep dark skin, he has that available. And if you're looking for bold, bright colors, he also has those available. These rival Sugar Pill. Sugar Pill is kind of the standard. A lot of us talk about Sugar Pill. I think these are better than Sugar Pill in a lot of ways, but you know, they're kind of closely similar in performance with the colors, and he has a better range, and they're similar price points. I think you get a little bit more. You might get a little bit more Even though you get a ton of product with Cozzette, you still get maybe a little bit more with Sugar Pill. But overall, I think it's a great range. I think it's something you should definitely check out. I will list all the shade names that I swatched in this video down below. I will put a star next to the ones that I personally love, which are a lot of them, because a lot of these colorful shades are so standout fantastic. And I do think they're a brand that are worth checking out. They don't get a lot of hype. Not a lot of people talk about them, but I personally love Rocky and I love his brand, and I hope that he gets a lot more recognition, especially with such a beautiful range of colors for people to check out. I will leave links to his Instagram and his Twitter where you can check him out, and his Facebook, so you can check him out. And I will also go ahead and leave links to the websites where you can pick this up. So that will be the Rocky Cozzette website, as well as ALCONEcompany.com. You have NIGEL Beauty Emporium, so you can pick these up at various websites. The shipping and the packaging and all that stuff will be different depending on where you order these from. I personally order from the Cozzette website, and it's really fast shipping since she's shipping from Brooklyn anyway, so it gets to me pretty quickly. So I can't speak for the experience for other people or other states, but just know that there are various different websites that you can order through. So I'm gonna leave it at that, and I will leave links to my Instagram and Twitter page where you can follow me along. And until my next video, which will be very soon, I'll talk to you. Bye guys.